Welcome into Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, we discuss everything going on with the Philadelphia Phillies currently eligible for arbitration, the ones who have already been agreed contracts with, and the ones who will be going or look like they're going to be going in front of an arbitration panel. We'll break down the complicated subject on today's Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas, talking Phillies baseball for years over on 97.5 The Fanatic on the radio, NBC Sports Philadelphia on the television, credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member, and I'm happy to be here with you as your host of Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. In today's episode, we're going to discuss arbitration. Now, I know this is one of those things in baseball, like I'll break down how baseball is to me and probably is to a lot of you out there. And I love baseball. I'm a baseball guy. I played my whole life, followed Major League Baseball, followed the Phillies religiously. Obviously, it's why I do what I do and why I'm the host of Locked On Phillies. But when I play an online video game, you just think about the four major sports. If I'm playing an NHL video game, if I'm on there and I'm playing Chell, I'm playing the whole way through. I'm making all the decisions in the offseason. I'm signing the players. I'm doing this, that, and the other thing. I'm drafting guys in the amateur draft. I'm doing all of that. If I'm playing Madden, I'm handling all of the contracts. I'm handling all of the free agents. I'm handling all of the draft. I'm doing everything. If I'm playing NBA 2K, if I'm playing a little 2K, I'm taking care of everything. Want to get a max contract? Okay. Or different slot money? Okay. Different stuff like that as far as super maxes and things like that. I can figure that out. There's only like 12 people on a roster. That's not a problem. Even though I'm the baseball guy, when it comes to playing MLB The Show or anything like that, pick your game. If it was MLB 2K back in the day with Manny Ramirez on the cover, I still remember that one. Was that MVP Baseball? What was it? I forget. Man, that's going to bother me. I'll look it up when I'm recording one of these ad reads. But anyway, baseball, I don't play the entire offseason because there's weird stuff like the Rule 5 draft and arbitration. And you have all the minor league systems. There's too many players to keep track of. And man, credit to the executives in the Philadelphia Phillies front office who handle all this stuff. It's next level complicated. And hey, that's what happens when you have 4 levels or more than 4 levels worth of baseball and fall leagues and all this stuff that all filters in to what we see on the field at the major league level at Citizens Bank Park. There's so much that goes into it for Major League Baseball, more than any of those other organizations. Arbitration is another one of those tricky things that you see, and maybe the average person says, I don't know what that is, and I don't want to deal with that. Someone explain it for me. And that's why people like me exist, to explain arbitration for you. We're not going to go too deep. Here's the basic understanding of what arbitration is. So you need a certain amount of what's called Major League service time. So it's amount of games played or amount of days spent on a major league roster to fill that service time until you're eligible to become an actual free agent, which is where you go out and any team can sign you. You can play the free market and you can get the money that you're earned. So what that means is until you reach that level of service time, well, you're basically locked into a single contract. Now, that's not fair for guys like, take, for example, Rhys Hoskins, who came onto the scene as a rookie and immediately started tearing the cover off the ball. Is it fair to him that for the next 4, 5, 6 years, he's going to have to be under that same contract? And of course, we're not going to dive too deep into what the pre-arb, eligible, this, that, and the other thing, all that jargon. No, the basic idea behind arbitration is until you can become a free agent in those off seasons, what you're able to do is you're able to be tendered a new contract by the team that you're with that you agree upon. So like, let's say the Phillies I have a great rookie year. I'm Dyson on the mound. They tell me, hey, Connor, we want to pay you $10 million for the 2023 season. I say, okay, that's great. Deal. I'll play for that. Perfect. No arbitration needed. If they say, Connor, we want to pay you $10 million though, I'm like, I really want 15. Like, no, okay, we'll give you 11. I'm like, no, I really want 15. Then you go and you sit in front of, like, you go to court. and you go through and an arbitration panel basically decides, okay, well, we've reviewed this and we've reviewed offers from both sides, and they're the mediator. They say, hey, okay, we've reviewed both your arguments. I think you're worth $12.5 million. And there is no arguing on that. That is just the agreed upon, what you play for, what you pay for. It's actually kind of a nice system, right? Because more often than not, they're going to come in the middle of two estimates when there's a huge dispute between the teams. Like, you're not going to say, oh, the player's actually worth even less than what they were asking for and significantly less than what the team was. No, it's not. It's not going to happen. Normally, it's a middle ground, which is nice because you see often in other sports there are contract disputes where a player ends up leaving an organization because they can't come to a number. Not that that's even really a possibility in baseball because, of course, you're still under contract with that team until you can hit free agency. But it takes some of the animosity out of it that may exist in other sports contract debates. So that's basically what arbitration is. Is it a bad thing if a player makes it in front of one of those arbitration boards or arbitration panels, whatever you want to call it? No, not necessarily. It's just part of the process. It's an understood part of it. It's like if you're going to sit down with an agent and negotiate a contract, you're going to expect your employer to want to pay you less than probably what you feel you've earned. That it's good business to do that. And your hope is that ultimately they will, like, you go in with a higher asking price than what you want. They come in with a lower asking price than what they think they're going to end up paying you, and you meet somewhere in the middle. That's how negotiation works. As an ambulance goes by, sorry about that background noise. Part of the downside of living in the city, folks, is thin windows and loud noises on the street. But that doesn't happen very often, so hopefully you'll forgive me for this one transgression. But that's basically what it is. So when the Philadelphia Phillies have arbitration eligible players, is it better for them to come to agreement outside of arbitration? In some cases, yes. But in some cases, you're going to save money that you need to sign other players later on in free agency or to put towards like camp invites if you want to extend them contract. It's not really a good or bad thing either way for the Philadelphia Phillies, because for this year, and we're going to get in coming up in the next segment, who these specific players are, what they have and haven't signed for this offseason. But this is more your crash course in arbitration before we get into the specific players that are dealing with it this year or have already dealt with it this year for the Philadelphia Phillies. But it more just affects your salary. And because there's no salary cap, well, no huge issue there. And because John Middleton and the Philadelphia Phillies are willing to spend, it's not a huge deal for the Philadelphia Phillies either. Where it could affect you a little bit is it could, for an impending free agent like Rhys Hoskins. I'll tell you how much he's making coming up, but the contract this year could have an effect on the market value next year. Say, like, hey, I played for this last year. Pay me more. Make that money up on the back end when you have to re-sign me as a free agent or I'm going to walk. So that's how it could affect. But for the year 2023, all it basically is if you've got an organization like the Phillies who are willing to spend, ready to compete, have an owner that's shelling out money, and are already pot committed to paying players what you need to win, well, it's not that big of a deal if you have an arbitration case that makes you pay somebody a little bit more, or if you settle prior to arbitration for an agreed upon number that may be a little bit higher than you were planning on. Doesn't really matter either way. It's imagine, not to lessen the value of players, but imagine a millionaire goes to a grocery store. He wants to buy a bushel of bananas. Are they called bushels? I think so. And there's like 6 bananas in there, and they're like, it's $1 per banana. And then all of a sudden you tell them, oh, it's $2 per banana. That's a millionaire. They don't care. Fine, you want $2 per banana? Who cares? Doesn't matter to me. It's more than I wanted to pay, but I'm willing to pay. Where it makes a difference is you have somebody like me who's got to save money, who's not a millionaire, who goes in there and like, I can afford $1 a banana. I can't afford $2 a banana, or I don't want to pay that. And that's when arbitration becomes key and everything like that. It factors in to what players you can sign later on in free agency once you go through these arbitration cases. But that's not a problem for the Philadelphia Phillies. So really, this is it's not a non-issue, but it's one that should bother teams and fans of teams like the Philadelphia Phillies less than your average Major League Baseball club. So there you have it. That's how arbitration works. Coming up next, we're going to talk through the players that were eligible and are still eligible for arbitration this year, how the Philadelphia Phillies have handled it so far, and a pair of really important players who don't seem like they're getting a deal done ahead of having to go into actually an arbitration dispute. So we will discuss that coming up next as we continue Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. And you can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. You got the NFL playoffs going on. It's awesome. College basketball's in full swing. The NBA, the NHL, they're both in the middle of their seasons. So much good stuff going on right now in the world of sports, and they've got it all at BetOnline.net. Eagles, Giants coming up this weekend. Wow. How can you not take advantage of a mismatch like that? You know the Eagles are going to smoke them. Make some money on it. Go over to Bet Online and do your research. If you don't believe me, well, they'll give you all the numbers you need. And if you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at Bet Online as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet Online is indeed where the game starts. All right, so here are some of the big players that were available for arbitration for the Philadelphia Phillies over the 2022-2023 offseason. The first one listed, I'm going through this nice article put together on SI.com just to list the players out together, and we're just going to go through the big names. There's really a couple of big names that have already signed, 4 that you're looking at that have already been taken care of, and 2 that are still awaiting. So starting with, let's just go through the amount of money that was decided. And for the record, you can acquire a player that is arbitration eligible, like Gregory Soto of the Detroit Tigers, who the Philadelphia Phillies traded Matt Vierling and Nick Maton and Donnie Sands for. So you got Cody Clemens back, and you got Gregory Soto. And Soto, who's going to be a part of the Major League roster, of course he is, been a 2-time All-Star at the Major League level. He's going to have to deal with arbitration as well. So it's not just players you've had in the fold. Even if those contracts are traded, if you don't have enough service time for free agency and you're arbitration eligible, you still got to deal with this process. But Hoskins got the biggest payday, I think rightfully so, out of the folks that were facing arbitration. Rhys Hoskins and the Philadelphia Phillies agreed to a 1-year, $12 million deal prior to arbitration. So Hoskins, not going to arbitration. $12 million, solid. No issue with that whatsoever. Pay him whatever. The biggest deal with Rhys Hoskins is what's going to happen after the 2023 season when he's a free agent and on the open market. He can command whatever amount of money. He's going to be an expensive commodity for the Philadelphia Phillies. And the more I think about it, the more I think the Philadelphia Phillies are going to be inclined to re-sign him and have him here and keep this core together. But we'll see. A lot can happen over the course of 162 games plus playoffs and everything going on. We'll see what Rhys Hoskins' future holds. But for now, the immediate future is going to play for $12 million this year. And he's going to go ahead and avoid going in front of an arbitration panel. Gregory Soto made the next most money out of the signed players already. Got $3.925 million, which, yeah, that's perfectly fine. For a reliever of his caliber, you're actually getting a really good deal there. That's part of the reason why you trade for him, because you got him under team control through the 2025 season, I believe. So you got him for years, a young arm. You can develop under pitching coach Caleb Cotham. And $3.925 million, just shy of $4 million, even for 1 year. He avoids arbitration. Ranger Suarez, this might be the best deal out of all of these. Got Ranger Suarez locked down for $2.95 million. That's just a benefit of finding a guy so young. We talked in yesterday's episode about Andrew Painter and bringing him up at the ripe old age of 19, which he is now. That leaves you, well, if you can bring him up that young, and he can be, well, you can bring people up at any age. That doesn't change their amount of service time. It's not like you have to be 28 years old to be a free agent at Major League Baseball, at the Major League Baseball level. Like, it's just the amount of time you've been in the major league. So I guess Painter would be arbitration eligible 6 years and change, 19, 24, maybe 25, depending on call up and the exact number of days and stuff you need. That's wild. But and anyway, yeah, you're looking at a young player in Ranger Suarez that you're getting for a really good deal because young pitcher still under arbitration requirements and everything. $2.95 million for Ranger Suarez, so sub 3 for him. The fact that you're paying about 4 for Gregory Soto, who I know he is an all-star, but I think Ranger Suarez is an all-star caliber arm when he's at his best, and Soto's a bullpen guy. You're paying less than 3 for Ranger Suarez, who you've had in your organization, who's already had that postseason experience and threw in a World Series game and everything like that. That's a great deal. And then Edmundo Sosa is the other player of the 4 that are currently signed. You signed it for $950,000, just under $1 million. What you got from Edmundo Sosa last year, worth every penny of that $950,000. And depending what you're looking at this year, Nick Maton going to the Detroit Tigers in that trade. Cody Clemens is probably not a guy that's going to give you a lot at the major league level. Edmundo Sosa is going to be your backup at multiple positions. He's your backup shortstop. He's your backup second baseman. He's your backup third baseman. That guy's an important player. So locking him down for $950K, that's fine. These are fine deals, and you can see why the Philadelphia Phillies agreed to them prior to arbitration. And I don't see any of these guys as super underpaid. Because that's just the arbitration process is not going. See, I think a lot of people see this too and think, why would they take significantly less than market value? Well, because arbitration is not market value. The reason players get bid up to the $300 and $400 million contracts that you see, not that anyone gets like the 400, but you get my point. Why they get bid up to those numbers is because the Phillies say we'll pay you this, and the Marlins say we'll pay you this, and the Mets say we'll pay you this, and the Nationals say we'll pay you this, and the Braves say we'll pay you this, and all of a sudden it's a bidding war. Arbitration is not a bidding war. They try and come to a fair assessment. Players do not get paid fairly. The good ones get paid over what they probably deserve because that's the benefit of an open market and why free agency is awesome and why it's so cool. But arbitration is a fair listing of what they are worth. So you see numbers significantly below market value. Just a little further explanation there. Now, here are the 2 that are not currently signed. Seranthony Dominguez and Jose Alvarado, both unable to come to terms with the Philadelphia Phillies, or rather the Philadelphia Phillies were unable to come to terms with them. And I've seen a couple people like worried about, oh no, how could you not come to terms with Jose Alvarado and Seranthony Dominguez, 2 huge parts of your organization, 2 huge parts of your bullpen, 2 of the best relievers in baseball last year. Oh no. Guys, they're going to go in front of an arbitration panel. There's going to be an agreement. They're going to come up with a number. It's that simple. Once it's done, there's no debating. There won't be any animosity. There's nothing of that. I'll tell you why those guys are going in, right? Because they had 2 of arguably the best seasons out of those guys available. Soto's coming in from another organization. Hey, just pay him. Rhys Hoskins, he's going to be a free agent next year. Just pay him. Well, whatever. Edmundo Sosa, you're a backup guy who got under contract for a while. Pay. Who was Ranger Suarez. I could have seen Ranger Suarez potentially not being able to reach a contract, but he's your 3rd, maybe your 4th guy, depending on where Taijuan Walker slots in. Okay. But these guys were 2 of the best relievers in baseball last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they're coming in with exorbitant numbers that are well above what the Philadelphia Phillies believe they can get away with paying them. Yes, get away with paying them. So that's the other benefit of not having to go to free agency. You can get deals on these guys, like I was just talking about. Fair value is not market value. And these guys see other relievers, and they're like, hey, might as well try and get paid like them. And then, like, you can write down any number you want for arbitration. Jose Alvarado and Seranthony Dominguez could come in and say, hey, we want $30 million each. The Phillies could be like, I think you're worth $4 million for one of you and $5 million for the other. They're like, no, we want $50 million each. And they're entitled to do that. But the Phillies are never going to sign those deals. And then you're going to go to an arbitration panel, and they're going to say something like, okay, Jose Alvarado is going to make $6 million, and Seranthony Dominguez is going to make 5.5, and done deal. And it doesn't matter what the guys asked for, and it doesn't matter what the Phillies offered, and they're even. They're going to come to a contract. There's nothing to worry about there. Everything's fine. Don't freak out over seeing that the Philadelphia Phillies were unable to come to terms on an arbitration contract. Seranthony Dominguez and Jose Alvarado will be members of this team. They're just figuring out a number to pay them. And again, for an organization like the Philadelphia Phillies, doesn't matter how much, because John Middleton's going to pay it either way. And they've already got all their places stacked, besides probably a backup outfielder and maybe another backup infielder. So no worries there at all. Arbitration can be a scary thing. Hopefully I just broke it down for you so that you understand what's going on and why not to worry about the players that we're still waiting on the numbers to come in for their 2023 salary. Coming up next, we're going to do a little scoreboard talk because I saw a picture today. I want to just update you a little bit from what we're seeing around the ballpark. We'll discuss as we wrap up Locked On Phillies. Okay, so I saw a picture today. Destiny Legardu tweeted this out, and I'm going to go ahead and retweet it. I sit next to Destiny in the press box. She does great work covering the Philadelphia Phillies, and she always puts up nice pictures and everything. Does great work for Phillies Nation, and a must follow on Twitter as well. She's posting pictures of the ball field and everything like that. This playing surface, it looks good, man. Like it looks like they could jog out there today on January 18th and play a baseball game. Except for the fact that the scoreboard is simply iron framework right now. I'll retweet this from Locked On Phillies later. But man, is what they're building just gigantic. It's extending. So if you remember looking at left field, there's the lower level seats that are down by the outfield wall and the flower beds. Then there's Harry the K's back there, which is the bar, and that extends across, and you have to walk in front of it. It's the length of the upper deck, so it's completely covered by the upper deck, and then there's the upper deck, and then right above that is where the giant scoreboard, the Fanavision, used to be. Well, this looks like the framework, just judging by the framework, and I'm not sure how much more they're adding on the end or the top. It looks to be a good 25, 30 feet wider than the old scoreboard, and maybe another 20, 30 feet higher. Like the framework they're putting up, and there's a big extension on the top right, which I imagine where a logo is going to go. Maybe a bell will be up there. But this thing is a behemoth. It's a giant scoreboard. Not that I think there was any issue with the old one. Like I understand this one's bigger and it's going to look better and probably preferred by everybody, because why not have a bigger scoreboard if you can? But the other one wasn't small. This one, though, looks like it's going to dwarf, like the lights that exist from the old scoreboard are getting basically blocked out by the framework of the new one. It's so much taller. So if you like looking at the replays and had trouble seeing the old one, well, fear not, there's going to be a cool new scoreboard out there in left field at Citizens Bank Park, and just more money that the Philadelphia Phillies are committing to their ball club, and it's a good sign. You love to see when people build. This is a ricochet shot. My apologies to our division rivals, the Miami Marlins. But you remember when they had that ugly Marlin statue out in center field and then they took it down? That's not a good sign when they're removing things from the ballpark. What is a good sign is when your organization is adding new things to the ballpark. Upgrades are always better than downgrades, and the Philadelphia Phillies continue to make upgrades. And I bet you that scoreboard and more is completely paid for by that World Series run and the playoff tickets that the Phillies sold this past year. But yeah, it looks great. Everything at the ballpark looks nice, and just seeing these pictures, again, shout out to Destiny Legardo of Phillies Nation for tweeting a couple of these out from walking around the park. Just seeing the pictures, place looks awesome. Looks in pristine condition. Makes me wish it wasn't January and that it was April and we were ready to go for the regular season. But a little bit of excitement on a cold, little windy out there winter's day to make you think about baseball being relatively right around the corner. Just a couple of months away, folks. We can make it. That's all for today's Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Lindsey Crosby is awesome. Does great work on Locked On MLB Prospects. One of my favorite listens ever. The Phillies have some interesting pitching prospects in their minor league system, and you can figure out who's available around Major League Baseball to maybe come up this year and make an impact. Who's some of the exciting prospects really are, whether they're in division, whether they're in the National League, whether they're just around baseball, and you're someone who wants to know who the next big thing is before the general public does. Well, listen to Locked On MLB Prospects with Lindsey Crosby. It's available on YouTube, Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts, as we are here on Locked On Phillies. Thank you for rating, reviewing, subscribing. Go ahead and click that bell. Click that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not, check it out on YouTube. It adds a little element to the show. You can see me go ahead and demonstrate some things sometimes, make expressions, hand motions. It adds a little element to it. So if you're not watching on YouTube, definitely check it out. See if it's for you. But I appreciate the continued follows here on Locked On Phillies, and I will talk to you tomorrow in the next episode of Locked On Phillies.